Everybody's been talking about Rocky and Creed. So let's talk about Rocky and Creed. People have been ranking the movies, which I'm not going to do. People have been ranking the boxers, which I'm damn sure going to do. But here's the deal. I'm going to rank the big three. We all know who the big three are. Apollo Creed, Clubber Lang, and Ivan Drago. I've seen a lot of videos, people ranking these boxers. Who's the best? Who's the scariest? Who's the, all right. Well, this is real truth. And we know a little bit about punching people in the face, which is an advantage we have over a lot of other people who are ranking these boxers. We also use common sense and we pay attention to the movies. So I'm going to break it down. Coming in dead last out of the big three, get ready to click dislike. It's Ivan Drago.
You must be out of your goddamn...
And I'm going to tell you why. The movie will try and tell you that Ivan Drago is this monster, this unbeatable machine. Anything he hits, he destroys and all that stuff, right? But then you watch the movie. Let's look at his first fight. He fought Apollo Creed and he killed Apollo Creed. And that's going to be something that gaslighters are going to go to right away. He killed Apollo Creed, so he's got to be... Well, let's look at how Apollo Creed trained. Well, actually, first off, wasn't Apollo Creed retired? Didn't Rocky say something like, hey, maybe you should be taking this more seriously? Now, look at the way that Apollo Creed trained for Rocky.
Sick! Sick! Pick him up! Fast! Time!
When he was not retired, what about before the fight? Wasn't he dancing with James Brown? Didn't the commentators even say, oh, he's already winded. He's been dancing with James Brown. Let's look at the meetup when we touch gloves. The difference between Apollo Creed touching gloves in Rocky IV and Apollo Creed touching gloves in Rocky II.
I tell you to, and you stay there until I tell you to come out.
Going down.
And let's look at Drago. Drago has everything he needs. The high-tech training facility, the sparring partners. He's got steroids. He's got height. He's got reach. He's got everything he needs, right? Okay, let's look at Rocky. That's his second fight. How did Rocky train for this fight? Well, he worked out in the snow. Did he have a sparring partner? No. So did he train for a boxing match or did he train for a fitness competition? He didn't train for a boxing match, and yet he still beat Ivan Drago. What does that say about Ivan Drago? Once again, doesn't mean the movie's bad. I'm just ranking the boxers. Let's look at another aspect. Rocky was also retired. So a retired Rocky who did not train for a boxing match beat this supposedly unstoppable, steroided out. He's got the reach advantage, the height advantage, the strength advantage, and he still couldn't beat a past his prime retired boxer who didn't even train for a fight. Now, people might say, well, Rocky, had determination. Yeah, that might help you in the street.
Oh, you want to hit people with garbage cans.
But this is a boxing match with rules. Another thing people point out about these movies is that nobody ever blocks in these movies. Nobody ever blocks in these movies. By the time I'm done with this video, you'll know that those people are full of shit. Did anyone notice that when Rocky hit when Rocky hit Drago for the first time hard, Drago didn't know what to do. As if he's an amateur.
He's cut! He's cut! Russian's cut! And it's a bad cut!
Okay, yes, he can take a punch, but if that's his reaction from getting hit, if he was in there with any of the other two, that's it. It's over. Because Rocky is, let's be honest, nicer than Apollo and Clubber Lang. I personally don't like this fight that much. So yeah, based on all that knowledge, that sure, I'm telling you, but it's in the movie, it's in the film. We can see that Drago comes in at last. However, you're saying to yourself, well, wait a minute, real truth. You haven't told us about Apollo and Clubber Lang yet. So what does the movie tell us about them? What does the movie tell us about them? Well, coming in at number 2, is my favorite character in the whole series, Apollo Creed. One of my favorite characters in cinema, Apollo Creed. His story arc is fantastic, even though he dies in part 4. I mean, he freaking creates Rocky. He trained way harder for the first fight against Rocky than he did against Drago, but he didn't train hard enough. And in part 2, he trains hard enough. I truly believe that Apollo in part 2 has Eye of the Tiger. He may have said at the end of Rocky 3, well, you had the Eye of the Tiger and I didn't. You look at that training session. You look at Apollo training in Rocky 2. That Montapa has the Eye of the Tiger, okay? They both had the Eye of the Tiger. Well, I tell you what, Apollo had the eyes of the tiger. And here's why he comes in at number 2. Because Rocky damn sure just had one eye. Rocky could hardly see out of his, his right eye in part 2. If we remember the scene where Mickey is standing in front of Rocky and he says, tell me when you see this finger. And he can see, in one eye, he can see the finger way over here with his peripherals. But in the other eye, the finger, he couldn't see it until it was like right in front of his face. And he said, he'll cave your head in because you ain't gonna see his punches coming. But here's the thing. He taught him how to fight. He was southpaw, so he taught him how to fight orthodox. That's really cool. Now that's a point in Apollo's favor, because in the first fight Apollo was fighting a southpaw, right? He didn't train to fight an orthodox fighter in part 2, so let's give it up for Apollo on that. He wasn't ready for no orthodox fighter. He didn't train for an orthodox fighter. He lost to an orthodox fighter, but still giving points back, taking points back away from Apollo. Rocky didn't train hard in part 2. He had from here to here to train for that fight. And from here to here, Mick was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you wasting my time? And then from here to here, Adrian went into a coma. And Rocky didn't train at all. And then Adrian said, win, Rocky, win. And then he trained like a sumbitch until the fight. And he won with one eye, orthodox. And if you watch the fight, I think it was like the last round or the second to last round, Mick says, now switch back to, and Apollo won't even see it coming. He did what he was supposed to do and he won the fight. So yeah, you kind of got to put that fight above the one in part 4, because in part 4, it's like whoever choreographed it didn't know anything about boxing. Whereas in part 2, at least they explored like right and left-handed, even though part 4 is still a fun movie. He's got the footwork, man. He's got the charisma. He's got the personality. He's got all those things, the speed, the skill, but he doesn't have that punching power, which brings us to number 1. Oh yeah, and a lot of people who review, they don't like part 3 too much. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to like part 3. But the truth is, Clubber Lang comes in at number 1. I'm going to tell you why. Well, first off, Clubber Lang beat Rocky. He beat Rocky. Rocky was still in his prime. He wasn't retired like both Rocky and Apollo were in part 4. He didn't take it serious enough. Mickey told you. He would knock you in the next week. He's a killer. You didn't train. Okay. And then, before the fight, there's an altercation and Mickey gets a little hurt, and that's in Rocky's mind. Okay, cool. So we can say, well, Clubber Lang ain't all that good because he didn't train that well and Mickey and all that stuff. Yeah, but then you got to continue watching the movie. Because here's something. Remember when I said that Rocky just worked out in the snow and he beat Ivan Drago? Wow, that makes Ivan Drago look pretty bad, doesn't it? Clubber Lang in Rocky 3 says, I train alone. If he does train alone, then Clubber Lang beat the heavyweight champion Rocky Balboa training alone. He did to Rocky what Rocky did to Drago. 2 more things. First off, if anybody brings up this scene.
But you people ain't never gonna see that happen because he's gonna retire. You see, he don't fight no real man.
Well, Rocky was retired as well. No, Rocky was not. This was Rocky about to retire. Rocky was still in fight shape. His job was fighting a boxer, and he was about to retire. And then he goes on to train with Apollo Creed, where he loses his confidence, but he's still in fight shape. So getting that confidence back and continuing his training is a totally different Rocky than in Rocky 2 when he fought Apollo Creed, where he wasn't in fight shape. He was working at a meat packing plant. So he was in meat packing plant shape, where he lost his confidence for an even longer amount of time. So it is a difference. That second thing, he trained with Apollo Creed. Whereas Ivan Drago may have had some sparring partners, Rocky's sparring partner was motherfucking Apollo Creed before he fought Clubber Lang. They were both in their primes when he did it. Let's look at the last fight where Rocky is able to beat Clubber Lang. Well, how does he beat Clubber Lang? Rocky has to learn how to fight a whole different style.
Looks fantastic.
And here's the thing about Rocky 3. Out of all the Rocky movies, Rocky 3 is the best boxing movie out of the whole franchise. Whole franchise. That is not debatable. Rocky 3 is not the best movie about a boxer. That's either Rocky 1 or Rocky 2. But Rocky 3 is definitely the best boxing movie. Rocky 4, we don't block or anything. They don't do shit in that fight. They just hit each other. It's actually stupid. And Rocky 1 and 2, they barely, at least in 2, like I say, they switch styles, but it's still like the blocking is like this much. In Rocky 3, the blocking in Rocky 3 goes from this much to this much. Rocky switches styles. He has to adapt mid-fight more than once, change his style in order to even compete with Clubber Lang. And yeah, Clubber Lang takes a lot of shots. There is a lot of points where they probably could and should block, but the movie tells the story. If you look at when they're showing at the very beginning of the movie, when we're playing Eye of the Tiger, and they're showing clips of Clubber Lang, they're showing him smiling when he gets jabbed. So we are already building, we're telling the story that maybe Clubber Lang is all right with taking those jabs. Rocky didn't have to change his style to beat Ivan Drago. He had to change his style to beat Apollo, and he had to change his style to beat Clubber Lang. He did not have to change his style to beat Drago. He didn't even have to train for a fight. And when I say blocks are more prevalent in part 3, not only does Rocky block more in part 3, he even duck, dip, dives, and dodges in part 3. It's beautiful. Like I say, part 3, the best boxing movie. A lot of reviewers will put strikes against Rocky 3 because of the talking shit aspect of Mr. T.
Hey, woman.
If you listen to them, they'll make it sound like it's unrealistic. Well, that's maybe because they've never heard of people like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, I'm not gonna go, look, we got a family here, okay? And so I'm not gonna sit up here and mansplain to y'all, because I feel like the people who subscribe to this channel know what the fuck I'm talking about. Ali is a thing. Ali is a vibe. Ali talks shit. We know he talks shit.
That's all you're gonna see. The Philippines, rather. Come on, girl. We in Manila.
Mr. T is portraying realistic, and when you're at that caliber, man, if you want people to pay to see you, Mike Tyson told Lennox Lewis he was going to eat his children. That's murder.
Praise be to Allah.
Roy Jones Jr. was a rapper, which means he would come down to the ring to diss tracks.
We gonna take it to the
Come on now. He was... But for people who try to say that Drago is the baddest dude in the first 5 movies, the big 3, after all this knowledge I'm giving y'all, and I know, and now we know, somebody was come up to me and be like, no, man, no, Drago is the best. I wouldn't say shit to him. Wouldn't say shit to him. I just look at him. But when I looked at him, I look at him like this. So that is shit. The definitive. That's definitive. That's the truth. That's the real truth. Using common sense and paying attention to what we see in the movies. Let's rank them. Number 3, Ivan Drago. I must break you. Had skill, but that it's Dolph Lundgren knows how to fight. Number 2, Apollo Creed, just smooth, right? Smooth in that ring, just moving around. Get your cameras ready, Bam, right? Loved his straight. And number one is Clubber Lang, played by Mr. T. Clubber Lang. I've talked about him a lot on this channel, okay? It's for good goddamn reason. So there it is. Get out there and watch those movies again, see what I'm talking about. Until the next video, who should we talk about next? Because let's talk about Van Damme. Let's get Van Damme. All right, till then, peace.